you ever heard of synchronous or asynchronous? So what I wanted to share with you about synchronous and asynchronous and why it's so important is that synchronous is like we're doing now. It's a webinar. It's where both you and your students are present and live. So it can be in like a webinar, as I've just said, could be on using other video conferencing software, and it could also be in a virtual classroom. But one thing about synchronous teaching seems to me, when I've observed other teachers who are teaching online, that it becomes very teacher-centered. That means it's all about the teacher instead of being all about the students. So there are advantages, of course, about synchronous. So you can interact with the students can interact with you, and they can also interact with their peers. You can give them immediate feedback, and you can also, in some cases, not always, but you can see their body language, whether they're, actually listening to you or whether they're, bored or whatever it might be. And also, if you're talking to them, you can get a feel for their tone of voice, for example. But the other thing is that there are some disadvantages, which means that people can, if they want to go on, they have to go on at a certain time, certain date, like this one, so that they actually get to interact with you as the teacher. It can be difficult for us as teachers to communicate. You're trying to communicate 1 to 10 or 1 to 15, or might even be more than that. And so that can be a little bit difficult. And also there can be, as I said before, a lack of attention. So let's move on now to the asynchronous class. So asynchronous means where you go on to a learning platform of some description. So it could be LearnDash, it could be your VLE or your virtual learning environment, or it could be perhaps part of your website. But they go on, your students go on to that and they click in, and there are activities for them to do. It might be workbooks, there might be some videos, there might be some files in there that you want them to go through and learn from. But there's no interaction really with the teacher. So again, there are advantages and different disadvantages, because it means that if you're doing an asynchronous class, it's available anytime, any place, anywhere in the world. As long as you've got Wi-Fi, you can get on. It also tends to be, for those that are using it, or sorry, those that are writing the courses and putting them out there, can be quite cost effective. I mean, I know that it can be really difficult, because I've done it myself, to get them up and running and put all the information, and your heart goes into it. But once it's up there, and it's up there and people pay to come and join it, what I would say to you though is, don't just leave it up there. Go and refresh it, go and check that it's all right. Or as I do, in mine, I have a chat box, because I like to mix and match mine a little bit. What else with the asynchronous class? I like the fact that people are allowed to sort of reflect, review what they're doing. They can work at their own pace, which is amazing, because if you're somebody who likes to take a bit of time over things, you can do. You can also go back and look at stuff. But there are some disadvantages, because obviously one of the biggest ones is feedback. If you don't get feedback from your tutor sort of pretty soon after you've done whatever exercise it is, it can be a bit demoralizing. So with the asynchronous class, it could be anything from 2 days to 2 weeks before you get any feedback. Your learners also have to be really self-disciplined. They have to be the type of person that will go on and go through and do all the work with no real outside support from the teacher. And they may struggle if they don't have that sort of teacher guide. So what about if we could take away all those disadvantages and change it? So instead of there being either an apple or an orange, like I've got here on the screen, that you could actually do a blended mix of both. Wouldn't that be brilliant? So what I propose here is, imagine you do a class whereby you've got an asynchronous or asynchronous modules. I put here 5. It doesn't have to be. It could be 3, could be 10. And you ask students to spend maybe 45 minutes on each one. And then by the same token, you have a second part to this, and you might do a live session via Zoom, and that could be 90 minutes, or you could do 3 modules and 2 live Zooms. But what the point of this is that you are doing a blended mix of both. And I think that is a much better way to run a class than one or the other. Although running one or the other, apples or oranges, does not mean that it's not going to be a successful class. But if you get a mix or a blend of both, I think you get the best of both worlds.